If I could have everyone's attention, please. My name is Sterling Beard, and on behalf of the Dartmouth Review and Polytalk, I'd just like to thank you all for coming to what is hopefully the first of many such talks to be given this evening. Not this evening, excuse me. There's only one talk this evening, but hopefully the first of many such events. Tonight we have for you Ted Broman, Dr. Ted Broman of the Heritage Foundation, where he is a senior research fellow at the, and correct me if I get this wrong, the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom, right, which Dr. Broman works there primarily writing about strengthening the Anglo-American special relationship between the United States and Britain, and the U.S. and British leadership of the broader transatlantic alliance. Dr. Broman joined Heritage in 2008. He's been there for about 2 years now after receiving his PhD at Yale and serving as Yale's Associate Director of International Security Studies, a research and teaching center dedicated to diplomatic, military, and strategic history. Also with us this evening, to give a brief introduction to the Heritage Foundation, is Heather Sexton. She is one of the directors of Heritage's Young Leaders Program, and in the interest of full disclosure, I went through that program this summer. An absolutely wonderful experience. I'm sure that if you'd like to speak to her after the program, she can give you more details, tell you how to apply. An absolutely wonderful experience, and I would recommend it to literally anyone in this room. So without further ado, Ms. Sexton.
Well, thanks again, Sterling, for all your hard work to put this event together. We're so excited to come out to Dartmouth, and a big thanks to Polytalk and the Dartmouth Review for hosting us tonight. Before Ted dives in, I just wanted to take 1 minute to talk about heritage. So I think it's important to understand who we are, to understand how we really approach all these different policy issues. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with the fact that we're a think tank, or a public policy research organization. Well, at Heritage, we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit research organization. So what that means is we don't support or not support any political parties or any political candidates, but we do unabashedly support our ideas. And our ideas bore out of our 5 core principles, which are limited government, individual freedom, traditional values, free enterprise, and a strong national defense. So our whole mission focuses on promoting those 5 core principles. We work on everything from healthcare and the economy to national defense and foreign relations. Tonight we're very excited that Ted's going to dive in on one of those issues. I'll close out at the end talking about our Young Leaders Program and more ways for you to be involved. But I know you're not here to hear from me, so I'll pass the floor over to Ted.
Great, thanks very much, Heather. As I was saying to some of you earlier, I think I've had the pleasure of visiting all the Ivy League institutions except for Dartmouth. And as I was saying this to Sterling on the way over, he said immediately, well, you saved the best for last. So thanks for that, Sterling. Thanks for all your hard work for putting this together. Thanks to Heather as well for organizing this, and especially thanks to all of you for being here on what's a really unpleasant night, and at a point in the semester that I'm sure is fairly busy for you, since I understand you've got papers and exams coming up. I thought I might talk for about 20 minutes or so, and then I hope, I believe that we'll have some time for some good discussion and question and answer. What I'd like to do tonight is give you a broad answer, at least in my sort of semi-prepared remarks, to the question I was asked to address, which is what should America's role in the world be? I'd like to talk about this in a fairly general way, and then perhaps in the question and answer session we can spend some time discussing the principles, if you want to discuss them, and applying them in a more policy-relevant kind of way to individual questions around the world. I should say that I do, as Heather has said, primarily foreign policy. I'm happy to venture a little bit into domestic policy if you have questions on that as well. But there I'm an amateur, and I'll stick in my sort of more official remarks to foreign policy-related subjects. I'm sure a lot of you in here have taken a course in American foreign policy. At least I hope that you've taken a course in American foreign policy. American foreign policy is tremendously complicated if you go detail by detail, event by event, over more than 200 years of American history. But I think that the essence of American foreign policy, and therefore the essence of America's role in the world, is really extraordinarily simple. I think there is a single tradition that has defined American foreign policy, a single tradition that has defined America's role in the world since 1776. And I think the U.S. should stick with the single tradition and should continue to play the same role in the world that it has played since the War for Independence. Now, let me explain what I think this principle is and how we got there. And in order to do this, I want to go back for a little while to the Founding Fathers and talk about how I understand what they did in establishing the United States as an independent and sovereign country. I think the Founding Fathers were two things. I think they were revolutionary or radical, but I think they were also conservative. I don't think you can understand them if you view them as either one or the other. They combine two traditions, which is one reason why foreigners, and even sometimes Americans, have difficulty understanding our system or our foreign policies, because we combine traditions into one synthesis. We're neither completely conservative nor completely liberal or radical. What was the revolutionary, what was the radical part of the Founding Fathers tradition? It's very simple to state. The revolutionary part was in the United States, as John Adams said, the people rule. It is a government of, by, and for the people, controlled to the democratically expressed will of the people. This today doesn't sound so unusual. There are lots of places around the world that say they're democracies, and some of them even actually are democracies, which is commendable. But when the United States set forward, when the Founding Fathers set forward the idea that government was supposed to be controlled by the people, and that in particular, foreign policy was ultimately supposed to be controlled by the people, that was a revolutionary idea. On the other hand, the Founding Fathers were also very conservative. The Founding Fathers recognized that there were other states in the world at the time. Most of them, of course, were European, Britain and France preeminently. And they recognized that these states were part of a much larger tradition of civilization. And the tradition of civilization includes very fundamental, very basic things, like the idea that there should be a legal system, and there should be a court system that applies the law, and there should be some process by which laws are made domestically. And because there is law, there should be some sort of police system set up to catch people who break the law, and then the courts are supposed to try them. And there should be some people, call them lawyers or barristers, if you will, who are charged with defending people or prosecuting people, and there should be judges. In international relations, there should be diplomats. Nations need to have some way of talking to each other, so every place that's civilized has to have diplomats. Every place is going to have some armed forces, probably an army, perhaps a navy, depending on where you are. And these armed forces should be commanded and controlled in some sort of way. There should be a chain of command. Some people should give orders, other people should receive orders, they should follow them. If they don't follow them, there should be some sort of punishment system set out. And there should be rules about the way you fight a war. There are definitely not rules against killing people, but for example, if someone really wants to surrender in personal combat, they should be allowed to surrender. You're not just allowed to run them through for the sheer fun of it. So a certain amount of borrowing of civilian property may be acceptable, but right-out looting is unacceptable. Those sorts of things should be punished. All of these things are very basic, and the Founding Fathers accepted that all of these things were institutions of civilization, and they wanted the United States to be a part of them. They recognized that if the U.S. didn't adopt these institutions, no one would recognize it as a civilized country, and they wouldn't recognize it as a civilized country either. So all of these really basic, simple obligations, including, importantly, a very few, what we would now call human rights. The idea of religious tolerance, not necessarily religious freedom. That's the word, the phrase that we use nowadays. But the idea that people of different religion living inside your territory should have some nominal tolerance of their different beliefs and be allowed to exist. The idea that you should be able to own property. The idea that you should be able to move around reasonably freely unless you're convicted of a crime. Really, really basic human rights. All of these things are fundamental parts of the civilized world that the Founding Fathers accepted and they wanted the United States to embody. In other words, they wanted the United States to become a part of the system of sovereign states. The system of sovereign states that was started in Europe and which the Founding Fathers wanted the U.S. to be absorbed into while still being special and exceptional in that it was a place that the people ruled.